U.S. President Donald Trump is projecting fresh momentum on the Iran front, claiming both diplomatic as well as strategic progress. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said China is very happy with efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and claimed Beijing has agreed not to send weapons to Iran. However, the situation on the ground remains unclear, with shipping through the strait still heavily constrained. Trump also suggested that the war with Iran could be nearing an end even as diplomatic efforts continue behind the scenes. Now, this comes as Pakistan's army chief, seen as a key mediator, arrived in Tehran to prevent a fresh escalation.
Pakistan's army chief arrived in Iran Wednesday to try to push for an end to the U.S. war with Iran. A senior Iranian source told Reuters that Field Marshal Asim Munir, who had mediated the last round of talks, was there to narrow gaps between the two sides. U.S. and Iranian officials are now weighing a return to Pakistan for a new round of negotiations. President Donald Trump told Fox Business Network on Tuesday, in an interview broadcast Wednesday, that he viewed the war as close to over. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson esmaeil baghaei confirmed the two sides have been exchanging messages through Pakistani intermediaries since talks broke down on Sunday.
The exchange of messages continues. From the very day, Sunday, when the delegation of the Islamic Republic of Iran returned to Tehran until today, numerous messages have been exchanged through a Pakistani intermediary. Our positions have been made very clear both there as well as in those exchanges.
But the diplomatic effort is being tested by a U.S. naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, now entering its third day. A fifth of the world's oil and gas travels through the waterway. Baghaei called the blockade provocative and contrary to international law, warning it could be a prelude to a breach of the ceasefire and that Iranian forces would react as necessary. The two sides remain far apart on core issues. Washington has proposed suspending Iran's nuclear activity for 20 years. Tehran has countered with 3 to 5 years. Iran is also demanding compensation for war damages, not just a lifting of sanctions. Trump launched the war alongside Israel on February 28th, triggering Iranian attacks on Gulf neighbors and reigniting a conflict between Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. Complicating peace efforts, Israel has continued to attack Lebanon as it targets Hezbollah, who are backed by Iran. Israel and the U.S. say this campaign is not covered by the ceasefire, while Iran insists it is. Israel's security cabinet will convene late on Wednesday to discuss a possible Lebanon ceasefire, a senior Israeli official told Reuters, after Israel and Lebanese officials held talks in Washington a day earlier.
Meanwhile, the United States is stepping up pressure on Iran's oil trade. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on Wednesday that Washington could impose secondary sanctions targeting countries that continue to buy Iranian crude.
The other thing that we have done is we have told countries that if you are buying Iranian oil, that if Iranian money is sitting in your banks, we are now willing to apply secondary sanctions, which is a very stern measure, and the Iranians should know that this is going to be the financial equivalent of what we saw in the kinetic activities. Iran is used to be the largest state sponsor of terrorism. China was purchasing more than 90% of their oil, which is about 8% of China's energy needs. We believe this blockade in the Straits, there will be a pause of Chinese buying.
At the same time, Bessent struck a reassuring note for U.S. consumers, saying gasoline prices or petrol prices in the U.S. could fall to around $3 per gallon this summer. He added that he has been in talks with West Asia counterparts as efforts continue to manage the fallout from the Iran oil crisis.
So when are we really going to get $3 a gallon gas?
Well, I think that's going to be the up to how the negotiations go. President Trump said this morning that he thinks we're nearing the end. The U.S. kept their side on the ceasefire. We've stopped firing. The Straits of Hormuz have not been completely reopened, so we will see. And I'm optimistic that during the summer we will see gas with a 3 in front of it sooner rather than later.
And on the broader geopolitical front, Bessent also said that ties between the US and China have shown great stability over the past year, crediting mutual respect between the two leaderships.
I actually think we're going to be building on those gains in terms of the trade deficit dropping with China. Since last summer, there's been great stability in the relationship, and really the keystone to the relationship is the strong respect that the two leaders have between each other. My experience has been when the communication is at the top, then we follow that directive and those wishes. We had the meeting in Busan, Korea in October. We will be having the state visit in Beijing, and so I expect great stability in the relationship, but that doesn't mean that our trade deficit can't continue dropping.
Well, the White House has pushed back on reports of a ceasefire push in the Iran war. Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt dismissed any such claims as incorrect. She, however, confirmed that talks with Iran are underway and remain productive. She added that any fresh round of negotiations is likely to be held in Pakistan, which has now emerged as the only active mediator in the conflict. Listen in.
I saw some reporting, again, bad reporting this morning, that we had formally requested an extension of the ceasefire. That is not true at this moment. We remain very much engaged in these negotiations, in these talks. You heard from the Vice President directly and the President this week that these conversations are productive and ongoing, and that's where we are right now. I've also seen some reporting about the potentiality for in-person discussions again. Those discussions are being had, but nothing is official until you hear it from us here at the White House.
Meanwhile, Iran has clarified there is no agreement yet on extending the current 2-week ceasefire with the United States, adding that it is the Americans who must prove their seriousness for the ceasefire first. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghaei confirmed that communication between the two sides is still ongoing, with Pakistan playing a central role in facilitating talks. Now, this comes after negotiations in Islamabad over the weekend ended without a breakthrough. Officials say both sides could return to Pakistan in coming days in an effort to revive dialogue.
تمدید آتش بس و این مباحث مطرح شده نه هیچ کدومش قابل تایید نیست. فعلا همونطور که عرض کردم گفتگوها از طریق واسطه پاکستانی ادامه داره و باید دید که طرف مقابل تا چه حد واقعاً جدیت داره نسبت به ادعاهایی که راجع به دیپلماسی مطرح کرده. این آمریکاست که باید جدیت خودش رو اثبات بکنه، به دلیل اینکه بارها نه تنها به تعهداتش پایبند نبوده بلکه
And at the same time, Iran is hardening its stance on negotiations with the United States. The country's atomic energy chief Mohammad Esmaeil said any talks with Washington can only move forward if Iran's rights and interests are fully recognized. Speaking at a rally in Tehran, Eslami said negotiations can be fruitful, but only if they are based on respect and mutual commitment. The remark highlighted the deep divide between the two sides, even as diplomatic efforts continue.
Therefore, now that the war has taken place, the negotiation that follows should be one in which the rights and interests of the Iranian nation are acknowledged. If Iran's rights and interests, which are the legal rights of a nation, are recognized and its dignity respected, naturally the negotiation can be fruitful. But if it continues, as it usually does, relying on deception and in fact on a lack of commitment and failure to adhere to agreements and set terms, then it naturally cannot succeed.